Over the last couple of years, Dan Mullen has got to see Georgia up close. And particularly last season it was tough because the Dogs didn't play well and still throttled Dan Mullen's Gators. But, the one guy that stood out at Georgia for some time, excuse me, and we've talked about this a lot, this guy right here, Brock Bowers. Okay. And this is what Dan Mullen had to say Thursday night on ESPN about the Georgia tight end. He said, Brock Bowers is the most versatile player in college football since Kyle Pitts. And if you don't know who Kyle Pitts is, he was the number 4 overall pick in the NFL draft in 2021. Played for the Gators, was a great player for Florida. He had 100 receptions for almost 1,500 yards and 18 touchdowns. He had 68 receptions last year for 1,026 yards with only one touchdown. So I don't know what that's about. But, that's who Dan Mullen compared Brock Bowers to. And he coached Kyle Pitts and honestly was a very nasty weapon for the Gators out of Philadelphia in that time. Here's what Dan went on to say. He said, Bowers is a unicorn. You can line him up with the X receiver, the Z receiver. You can put him anywhere. You can't defend him. This is the important part here. You cannot defend him unless you have a unicorn on defense that can do all the things on defense he can do. That's tough to do. And I mean, I thought immediately of Lewis Cine, but Lewis, I mean, the speed wise, I think would hang in there pretty well with Brock Bowers. But on the height, maybe, Lewis Cine may be a type of guy that you can kind of deal with. But then Dan goes on to say this: you can move him, talking about Bowers, from different positions on the field, so the defense is really out of sync trying to find him on every single play. Brock Bowers is an amazing athlete, the likes of which we've not seen at Georgia a lot. We talked about Brock a lot. Darnell Washington needs to get some praise too. Make sure you're picking up DAWGSTRUCTION today. 80 pages, if you're just now watching this, of Georgia's 2021 National Championship. We got a lot of new viewers. Thanks to everybody. It chronicles every single game. A behind the scenes look at the Dogs. If you want me to sign it and personalize it for you, I will do that. But you need to email me right away once you order it. I turn these around very fast. When you look at Brock Bowers and what he's done at Georgia in the limited amount of time he has played, when I'm recording this, he has played 19 games at Georgia. Last season at Georgia alone, he had 4 runs for 56 yards and a touchdown, 56 receptions for 882 yards, and 13 touchdowns. All of those he led the team in. Okay, he scored 12. This is the amazing thing in Georgia's last 9 games. So the 5 games until the 5 previous of 2021 to all 4 of the 2022s. He has scored 12 touchdowns in 9 games, y'all. There's not been a game in that period of time where he's not scored. So he scored a slew of touchdowns this season already. But when you look at what he did against Alabama a season ago, scoring against Alabama in Atlanta, as well as in Indianapolis, and Brock's touchdown, which I did not put in the book. Okay, now that's on me, but there were only so many pages. This Brock Bowers right here in the Orange Bowl, where he scored the first touchdown of the game, and it was just on from that point. There's no such thing as unstoppable. There's things that you can do to slow people down. But Brock was so exceptional a season ago, and he continues to be exceptional now. Here's some more stuff from the magazine earlier in the year. Brock Bowers, the 89-yard touchdown from Stetson in the UAB game. This play against Georgia Tech was something else, where he just caught the ball and checked out. It was not dissimilar to what he did to South Carolina, Shane Beamer's South Carolina Gamecocks earlier this season, and just making guys look slow, and unathletic and not gifted in any way when we're talking about SEC football players here. So Bowers is, yes, he's a unicorn. I look forward to that term being overused quickly here by the media, like moxie. Um, Brock Bowers is just something we've just not seen a lot of over the years. Um, as a person who has a tight end's body, it's not easy to be that fast. It just doesn't happen for people our size. And that's the thing that's so impressive to watch is his functional change of direction speed, his straight up uh, straight line speed, and then just his dependability as a player for Georgia. He is probably Georgia's best player, although Jalen Carter is really good as well. And Stetson Bennett is really good too. But I just don't know if there's anybody like you can double team Jalen. You can't do that with Brock Bowers, and it's challenging to handle him at all times. The guy is something else. We are going to overuse the term unicorn, but y'all, I mean, I'm trying to think. Jeremy Shockey, Kyle Pitts, um, to some degree, Kellen Winslow Jr. I guess. I mean, Miami has some crazy uh, tight ends, Gronk, but Brock Bowers isn't like that big. Like Brock Bowers is a real problem, and Kirby talked about it earlier this week where he's not. I mean, he plays tight end, yeah, but you can line him up almost anywhere on the field. I mean, I don't think he's going to go number one overall because it just the value's not there. But man, he might be the best player in college football, just generally speaking. I mean, Jalen Carter is really good. I mean, for all we hear, and I do not mean this disrespectfully towards these guys. Now, I voted Bryce Young number one in my Heisman ballot a year ago. But all we hear about Will Anderson and and Bryce Young, the duo of Jalen and Brock Bowers is up there with almost anybody, including Alabama, including those two guys at Alabama. And I would rather have Bowers than Anderson, but they both can really affect the game. It's just that even when Georgia was getting beat solidly by Alabama, Brock Bowers was still making plays. When Georgia was beating Alabama, it was uh, it was Brock Bowers that I mean Keely Ringo put the game away, but it was essentially Brock Bowers that gave them the eight point lead that caused Bryce Young to have to get down the field in a minute. We're not going to see a lot of players like this in college football in the future. Todd Hartley's done a really good job. Don't get me wrong, but you're just like if Todd goes and gets another guy like Brock Bowers. I mean, I just don't know what to say about it after a while. The likelihood of that is low because there's just not a lot of guys out there. There's not a lot of guys like Darnell either, but I get that's more probable. I mean, like excuse me, Darnell reminds me of KJ Jefferson at Arkansas, just a mammoth jumbo athlete that is real trouble all the time. Um, that happens. It's not common with Bowers. Um, again, the functional speed, the change of quickness, the change of pace quickness, the just all of it. Anything, it just it's hard for me to put into words just how gifted he is athletically because when I think of the athletes on the team, I think of the defensive backs. I think of guys that can do cartwheels and somersaults and it's no big deal. Brock Bowers could do all that stuff. If you wanted him to play basketball, tennis, um, something other than football, he could probably hang in there pretty well. But it's in football. The stuff he can do is exceptional. The stuff Darnell can do is exceptional. These guys really are a problem. They really are a problem. And keep this in mind. This is the amazing part about Brock Bowers. He is not even halfway through his career at Georgia. He's not even halfway through his career at Georgia. It makes me think about guys like Herschel who were just exceptional, but I mean, there were no Brock Bowers or Darnells running around in 1980. That just didn't. It was they weren't there. So these guys are a generation younger than I am, and you can tell they just don't make them like this back in the day. And guys like this and Todd Gurley, I mean, these guys are the straight up freaks that Georgia's had over the last 10 years. Darnell and Brock. I can't talk about Brock and not mention Darnell. He's just too freaky deaky. You know, he's a unicorn too. See, that's what's going to happen is everybody's going to start using that phrase. And there's not a lot of 6'8" monsters running around out there either that are leaping over people and making grabs the likes of which were just hard to fathom. So I think Dan is right. Um, and I think that those two players at Georgia give them an immediate advantage, and the combination of Stetson Bennett and Todd Monken's ability to use them makes Georgia uber dangerous, and everybody knows it.